Welcome to the With You and For You podcast. Our desire is to equip college-age students within the Edmond, OKC area by discussing topics and questions that are relevant to our generation. With that in mind, let's get to the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the With You and For You podcast. As always, it is your host, Riley Jackson, along with the usual crew, Krista Dye, Tyson Hill, and Kyle Thomas.
Never been different.
Never been different.
With
the
usual
crew.
We're just the usual crew.
The usual crew.
The only crew.
We should get
One time we
matching
were
t-shirts.
friends. One time we were best friends. Now
Now we're just a usual crew.
With my people, you know. What
No.
should I
Oh, that's
say?
kind of nice.
No.
What's the word? Should there be you? Should there be?
Oh,
a
I just
word
like
there?
making fun of you. It's fine. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It's fine.
It's fine.
I should just say
We
with
can-
Krista Dye, Tyson Hill, and Kyle Thomas. No.
No,
adjective.
you're fine.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to make fun of you.
Oh, okay.
In the notes, it said maybe some banter here.
I did see that
I
too.
put the banter in
That's
here.
I just expect it, you know.
You can't leave the maybe in there. Tyson will just.
He said
He'll
He'll
put
maybe.
the
take it
definite.
literally.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
If you guys were like quiet right after the introduction, that would be very weird.
He
I'm not
was
gonna
there
lie.
We
be
should
like-
just do that one time
I think it'd
and
be
not tell them
awkward
we're
for
going to do
everybody.
that.
And then he'd be like,
It would
okay, I'm going to keep going now.
Like just
It would
a
be very awkward.
solid 30 seconds of silence. People listening would be like,
What's happening?
"Did
Did it cut out? What's
something
going
break?
on?
Is there still a podcast? What's going on?
What's happening?
We're just spending this time in silence.
I don't know what to do with my hands right now."
So to jump right into it, today we're going to be talking about the first steps of what it actually looks like to become a Christian. So to put it simply, to become a Christian means to accept that we are broken as people and that separates us from God. And because he is sinless and not broken, that is the reason it separates us. And the way that we get put back together so that we can be with God is through the faith and the grace of Jesus saving us. And everyone in this room today has experienced that and is currently being saved by grace through the faith in Jesus. So today we're going to be going over a little bit of our stories to maybe help give you guys an idea of what being in a relationship with Jesus is like. So kind of just to start it off, when you guys first put your faith in Jesus, what did that look like for you? And anybody could start, which would probably be Kyle.
Doesn't have to be me.
Doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be.
Tyson, you want to go first?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I can go first.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I guess I'll just share my testimony. That's probably the easiest way to do this, isn't it?
Maybe.
I feel like that's
Maybe.
kind of what he asked for.
So when I was in elementary school, I went to church pretty often, but it wasn't for a sense of like a relationship with the Lord. My mom really just did it to like please my grandparents. My grandparents have been very devout believers my whole life. And so I got baptized when I was in elementary school, but really I just kind of got wet. I did it because my sister got baptized, and I was like, if she's getting attention, this guy wants some too. Just real good didn't stick moment, you know. And then so I stopped going to church until my sophomore year of high school, when I had a friend who at Super Summer that summer, they like preached over a series like Who's Your One or something, and he really felt like the Lord had put my name on his heart. And so going into the semester, the Lord gave us, I think we had 5 out of 7 classes together. And so my friend just diligently continued to invite me to church, continued to invite me to church. And then finally, I was like, okay, I'll go to church with you. And so I went to church with him. And then through, my story's a little different than some. I don't have like an exact date. I don't have like December 12th, 2003 is when I came to know the Lord. But through my relationship with him, and like he brought me to church, and through just seeing like the love and grace of a church community who truly like adopted me as their own, sometime in that summer, like I accepted the Lord into my life. And yeah, since then, so the early days of it, I mean, probably look pretty similar to most of y'all, but I mean, I was in high school, so I didn't really, like, I just learned a lot, but I didn't do a lot. You know what I mean? So I learned a lot of stuff about God, and it all made sense, but I wasn't acting it out. Does that answer the whole question? Am I missing something?
No, I think there was.
No, yeah, just the
Okay.
early days of your
All right.
faith. What
I'm gonna stop there.
did it look like? You answered.
Yeah, okay.
Why? What?
Okay, somebody go.
Riley's
next.
looking at me. I feel like this. I talked about this on Thursday a little bit.
Yeah, but some people weren't there, so
Yeah,
go
some
get
people
some.
weren't there. Some people are probably listening to this that weren't there.
Or
Like
some people maybe listen to this in like 2 years. So
That's true. That's true. So yes, I would have been. I mean, I had some experiences with like church and even hearing the gospel kind of a earlier age. So probably when I moved to Northeast Oklahoma when I was about 8 years old, and that's when my brother kind of got plugged in. He made some friends, got plugged into church, became more of like a bass guitar. You know, they started a band kind of kid, and so that's when they started going to youth group. You know, so there's a lot of Christian ska bands they were listening to, a lot of punk rock type things, and we went to like a revival that was happening at one of his like friends, one of our, I guess he was another like Boy Scout. His dad was a pastor. And so went to this revival and heard the gospel, understood, hey, I need that. But as I've said, you know, multiple times, like when they do the whole, hey, come forward if you've made a decision, I was out. I was not doing that. Didn't like being in front of people. Did not like any attention really on me. So I just kind of, you know, went and hid in the bathroom, and the Lord convicted me of that later. But once my brother started going to youth group, and once I was able to get into kind of like going to youth group with my brother, because I wasn't about to go to church on my own, or I wasn't going to be around him, that's when I really got plugged in, and I went to my first like church camp, Falls Creek. The year was 2002. So a while back, 2003, actually. Yeah, 2003.
I was
So
2 years
December
old.
2003. Yeah, I like how Tyson said the December 2003. I was like, bro, you were like 3.
I know. I was
What are
thinking
you
about that too. I was like, I'm
talking about, man? Like,
confused.
just a random date.
yeah, no wonder you don't have that date because you weren't old enough to make a decision. But so while you guys were in diapers, I was at Falls Creek.
Getting saved.
Getting saved. Yeah, that's right. And everything about that week was great, but also awful because I got sick. So I had like 101-degree fever.
Oh, God.
You had to wear pants still. The tabernacle was outside, so it was super hot. My youth pastor was just like, "Oh, Kyle, I think you're just homesick." I'm like, "Bro, I'm telling you, I know myself, and this is not me being homesick. Like, I'm not wanting to go home. I just don't want to have this 101-degree fever and be here, you know, like, and in that, again, the Lord impressed upon me, like, hey, the Holy Spirit convicted me of my sin, and not that I did anything like terrible, not that I was a super awful kid, but I was still broken in my sin. I was still lost, had no savior in my life, and so that time I did, you know, the whole altar call came up, and I walked forward, me and my fever in my pants, just walked forward in the outdoor tabernacle, and then had some, you know, kid that I don't even know if he really knew what he was doing, because he was called to drama ministry. If you know anything about church ministries now, you know where drama ministry went. It's gone. Yeah, it's no longer in existence. Pray for that guy. Hopefully he made it through. And he kind of walked me through, you know, the gospel and everything. I was like, yeah, like I want it. You know, and he like kept walking me through. I was like, no, bro, like I want it. Like, what? You know, I was like, yes, I'm in.
It's okay.
And so made that decision. And I mean, that's kind of, I think for me, the hard thing is there wasn't a lot of like discipleship after. Like there was and there wasn't. I mean, to be fair, it was a different time frame. So youth pastors at that time, you know, it's kind of like, hey, if you're trying to do things that aren't just big events and fun activities, then sometimes you can be on an island and there may not be a lot of consistent help especially in discipleship. I don't think discipleship was super popular, quote unquote, at that time. And so my youth pastor he was great. He did a great job, but he had a lot of kids that he had to, you know, kind of interact with and have conversations with and be around. And so I kind of went through my high school years just being like, all right, like I know the things not to do and I'm going to kind of do the things I know to do, but I didn't really start taking my faith seriously until I got to college.
I grew up in church, and I just remembered, like, again, kind of like what Tyson was saying, I don't have, like, an exact date or anything. I don't even really remember, like, the exact day I was saved or anything. But like, from what I kind of remember, like, bits and glimpses, because I, like, came to faith at a really early age. I was 6. And all I remember is, like, it was one day after church, and I was just, like, on my little swing set in the backyard. And I just remembered, like, walking back inside, and I had just, like, been thinking about what we had talked about at church that day, and I went back inside, and my mom was in the kitchen, and I looked at my mom, and I was like, Mom, like, I understand that, like, I'm a sinner, and, like, I want to give my life to the Lord. I probably didn't say exactly that, but the premise was, like, still there.
Oh, you did.
So
We know you.
So
Mother, I would like to give my life to the Lord.
That's right.
So then, I mean, like, my dad was at home, so, like, we all, like, went to the kitchen and we, like, talked about it, and they asked me questions and things like that, and I was like, yeah, like, I understand, like, the gospel, and I understand that, like, the things that I do that are wrong, like, that Jesus died for on the cross, like, for my sins, and like, I need to be saved from those things. And then the next Sunday, I remembered going to church, and my children's pastor, who, his name was Brother Brian, but we all called him Bro Brian. But he had a really big impact in my life, and I remember going, me and my mom went to him, and, like, we were talking to him about, like, my decision and stuff, and then he kind of walked me through just, like, the steps of baptism and things like that. So then, even in that, like, I think, like, a couple Sundays after that, like, I was baptized, and a lot of people, like, when I do tell them my story, sometimes they're kind of skeptical of, like, well, you were so young, like, you really don't remember it, kind of thing. And I, again, don't exactly remember everything, but I do remember there was a distinct, like, shift and change in my life, because I just remembered, like, wanting, like, having the desire to go to church and, like, coming home and asking my mom just a million questions about, hey, we talked about this in Sunday school day, what does this mean, like, and just having a deeper desire to know. And even, like, going to church on Wednesdays, like, I was so excited and so ready just to, like, dive into my faith and, like, learn about it. And I didn't do Awanas like the cool kids in the elementary. I did something called GAs. It was called Girls in Action. It was a fun time. We talked about missionaries. That was, like, the main thing for that. So, like, each month we would, like, highlight a missionary family, and we would pray for them. And sometimes, like, if we could, we would send them letters and things like that. And I just remember being, like, just so drawn to that and just so excited and wanting to learn and just being just so, and, like, mesmerized by people that were like, yeah, we're just going to move halfway around the world to share the gospel with others. And I was like, okay, what I'm believing is, like, a very real thing, and it is a very important thing. And so I just remembered, like, from an early age, just being really excited about the things of the Lord. And then I remembered my faith really began to grow really in middle school, because up to that point, I just kind of thought everyone knew about Jesus. And then I go to middle school, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like,
Nobody
reality kind of
knows
hit
about
little,
Jesus.
like, 6th grade Krista. And I was like, oh my goodness. And it was just this thing that I was like, wow, like, not everyone goes to church. And I, again, like, just in my small, tiny world, like, I kind of was just like, I thought everyone around me went to church, had a relationship with the Lord, and it that's obviously not the case. And so I just remembered being, like, wow, like someone needs to do something about this. And then I was like, oh yeah, like the Lord has given me like the gospel and saved me like for that very purpose. And so I remember in middle school, like it just coming home and like doing homework and then eating dinner with my family and hanging out with them. And then I would go into my room and I would just like read my Bible. I had no clue what I was doing. Like I didn't know exactly what to study or what to do or anything like that. But even today, like I still have like all of those writings from when I was really little, and like I will still go back and look at them sometimes and be like, wow, that's what I was thinking about this. And like just funny things, but it's like I just remembered like that's when my faith grew, because I saw the problem of sin around me and I was like, oh, there's like a much bigger issue than myself, but like I can contribute to helping people like see the solution to that, which is like faith in Christ. So that was kind of like just my early years and how I began to grow in that. But kind of like what Kyle was saying, there really wasn't an aspect of discipleship. But again, like when I came to know Christ, I was 6. I wasn't going to go up to somebody and be like, will you disciple me? Like that's not how that was going to work. But even like in middle school and high school, there really wasn't that, like that concept just was not very much well known to me. And I didn't know that was something like I should be seeking out. But then like going to college, is when discipleship really began to hit me, and now even discipling girls now, like it's fun to get to do that because a lot of girls I see like have the same story of they're like, yeah, I grew up in church, but like no one ever followed up with me on that thing, and so I want to like help them and meet them in those ways. But yeah, Riley, what about you?
Well, kind of along the same lines as Krista, I grew up in church. For as long as I can remember, that's what we did. I just went to church. And when I was 9 years old at the time, I was going to one church called Rejoice in Owasso, Oklahoma. And at the time, my best friend was going to a different church called First Baptist Owasso. And what y'all shaking your head at?
Tale as old as time.
So yeah, I was going to a different church, and he invited me to a couple Wednesday nights at First Baptist Owasso, and I was just like, oh, okay, I'll go with you. It'll be fun. And it ended up being a blast. I loved it. It was really cool. And like I said, I grew up in church. I was going to a different one at the time. But I decided to start going to that church because I was like, I loved being with my best friend. I met a couple other like really cool people, and I became friends with them when we all really just clicked. In a couple months going to the church, my best friend told me he was getting baptized. And I was like, oh, that's cool. What's that? And he was like, oh, it's something that, you go up on stage and you get dunked by the pastor and everything. And he says a couple words and everything, and then you're done. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, what do I need to do? And he was like, oh, well, you need to be saved. And I was like, what do you mean saved? And he was like, oh, bro, you're not saved? Like, oh, man, like, I'm sorry, but like, you can't do it. And I was like, oh, what? Okay, why? That's dumb. So like, I went and just was like, I was kind of distraught about it because I wanted to do what my best friend was doing. But so I went to my parents and I was like, what do I need to be saved? And they were like, oh, well, this is what you need. This is what needs to happen. And they basically told me that like, you've done bad things. Like there are things in your life that just, that are things that keep you from God and separate you from God. And you need to put your faith in Jesus so that like he can restore those things. And it, like, to be honest with you, that scared me. That scared me so much because like I to be honest, like 9-year-old me was really ignorant and I had no idea I'd ever done bad things. So that was a really eye-opening.
This is 9-year-old you?
Yeah,
9-year-old
just 9-year-old you, huh?
Yeah. So your parents had told you you'd done bad things up until 9-year-old
Well,
you?
I just figured they're like, just mess ups. They're accidents. So like I really didn't know that. I was like, oh my goodness, what I've been doing has been like separating me from God. The one I thought the one that I thought was just like merciful and graceful at all times. So and in that moment when I was 9, I was like, okay, I need Jesus because I've done bad things. But like I got baptized shortly after that, and then the years of like middle school, all the way up to my freshman year of high school, I had the thought of like, like I know I'm saved. I know I have Jesus in my life, but I'll take it serious when I'm older. And I know that sounds dumb, but
Sounds average.
it's
Sounds about right, actually.
like I saw the people that were like leading my small groups, and I thought they were really awesome, but I didn't want to be like them yet. I was like, I've got life to live. I've got
right.
I've got things to do.
I got some sinning to do, guys.
I got some accidents
When
to
I'm
do.
20, I'll be more serious.
So I saw them, and I was like, oh, I want to be like them one day, but not right now. And I'll take my faith seriously when I'm older. And I did take my faith seriously when I was older, but a lot sooner than I thought I would. So freshman year kind of came around, and I realized, I was like, oh man, I've been taking this faith for granted. Like my freshman year of high school, I don't like, what have I been doing? I've had this thought process of I'm gonna take this serious when I get older, but that's dumb. Why I have a relationship with Jesus now. Why I need to take this serious. So freshman year of like high school, that's when I realized I need to like build this relationship with Jesus and start to pursue him and desire him and to read his word and to pray and do these things. And I really didn't know how or what to do. But I just tried. I just started. I just I just read the Bible and started in Genesis and just prayed. And I was like, well, God, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know you're there and I know you're listening to me. So I'm just going to talk. And I started then, and I didn't actually really learn much about my faith. I just tried a bunch of random things throughout high school, until college, until I started discipleship, until I honestly met Kyle, and I was like, oh wow, this is crazy. Like this is so much deeper than I ever thought it would go. Like this faith is so much deeper than just surface level of like, oh, I know Jesus and I have a relationship with him. There's wonders and there's beautiful things that just come along with it, that I can be with Jesus now, and I can be in his presence now. That's something I didn't realize up until I got into college. So those are like my first years of my faith. And I know it was a little bit longer than like when I first got saved, but yeah, so that was kind of the first bit of it. But the second question I kind of have for you guys is, who helped you along the way? Like whenever
Jesus.
Yes.
Nice. I nailed it.
Good. But like what mentors in your life helped you kind of just like realize and understand what this faith is?
Before I answer this question, I just think it's wild. I haven't put this together yet because this is the first time I've kind of heard everyone's at once. But I'm the youngest Christian up here by a lot.
Well, I'm older than you
I know,
by
but
like
still,
10 years.
But still,
When did you come to Christ?
16.
Okay, I was like 13.
So like,
So.
I'm just a little baby, guys. Just a little baby. I'm coming up on 10 years. Golly. But my story also echoes all of y'all's story of really taking it seriously in college. And so the first, my youth pastor growing up, seeing his genuine care for us really like had an impact on me. But the first person to really dive into discipleship with me was the head pastor of the church I went to, and the friend's dad, he was the pastor of the church. And I had made a lot of stupid mistakes my freshman year of college, but I passed my freshman year. And then starting in my sophomore year, those mistakes caught up to me, and I withdrew from school and dropped out, and like knew I needed to change something. It was like I remember the exact moment. I like tell the Piercies, they're the family, my mentor's family. I told them I dropped out, and they said, "Hey, like if you need to come home, because I'm from Duncan, you can come home." And I was like, prideful Tyson, I don't want to go back to Duncan, Oklahoma. And so I was just trying to plow through, get through being dropping out, and I'll start again in January. And I remember one day I was just miserable. I worked at Buffalo Wild Wings. I was just miserable. I had enough with everything. I was like something has to change. And so like I go outside Buffalo Wild Wings, and that's where we have all our kegs stacked up. And I was sitting on a keg, and I was just like, okay, I'm done. Like something has to change. And so I texted him and I said, I need to come home. And so I went home, and for 6 weeks, we just looked at the foundations of what it looks like to be a man of God with Mike. And he was the first man to really help me kind of start this journey of what it actually looks like to be a Christian.
So my youth pastor helped me get connected to a guy by the name of Shannon Cross, who's the BCM director at NEO, which is where I went and played soccer for 2 years. And combination of my youth pastor and Shannon constantly Shannon didn't like text me or anything, but he would just kind of he was always around campus, and so he'd always be like, "Hey, you should come to BCM. Hey, you should come to BCM." And my youth pastor would be like, "Hey, have you gone to BCM yet?" You know, like they'd always kind of be pushing that, and I was, a young dumb freshman that was playing soccer. I was like, "Oh no, whatever." And so through that, the constant reaching out. The constant just, I think, presence and being there, and not like in an annoying way, it really helped me to see, hey, here's somebody that actually cares. And so Shannon took the initiative, I think it was over Christmas break of my freshman year. It was like, hey, we should get together at the start of the spring semester, and let's start meeting up. And so we just started to meet up and go through master plan evangelism, memorize scripture, and everything like that. And it really showed me the benefit of discipleship and the importance of it. Which is what ended up leading me to OSU, because I knew their BCM director was a heavy discipleship guy, and I needed it. So yeah, I think those are some key guys in my life early on.
Well, I'd already kind of mentioned my children's pastor, Brother Brian, and even just even now, I just even remember. When it was time to start going to camps and things like that, he would just ask me hey, are you going to come to camp with us? And just pushing me to those things, which, if you know me, I absolutely love summer camps. So I was and that love of it began when I was, very young. And then I think another really important person that I even am still talked to today, when I was in 6th grade, our church did had a Sunday school class just for 6th graders, and at the time a lady named Danielle was leading that. Her and at the time her fiance David, and they're now married, were leading that together. And they're so fun, and they're so funny to just be around, but they really every Wednesday night, when we would get together, they would take us places to go serve the community, we were living at the time. They even nights where we would just stay at the church, Danielle would just teach us Bible stories and teach us just the eternal implications of them. And so she just really poured into me a lot, and it was even sweet because this past Thanksgiving break, me and Micah were in town, and we got to go visit them, and so that was sweet for them to just even meet, and me to be these are a lot of people that have impacted me. And I still hang out with them every summer. I go out to their little RV camper and hang out with them. It's just a fun time, and they just really impacted my life in that. And then even from there, just a ton of different people in my church growing up that I still keep in contact with today, and that I could think of, and then again, just even in college, was when I met Sarah and Kyle, and they both have had an impact on me, just in instilling just eternal implications into my life and helping me understand those things. But yeah, so there's just been a bunch of different kind of pods of people in my life at random seasons that the Lord has brought into my life, and that have always just kind of helped me just kind of along the way.
So what were some great things that happened for you guys in your first couple years of faith? And then, or on the flip side of that, what were some negative things that happened that you would encourage people to go to and stay away from as you experienced?
I think as I look back on the smartest things I did in high school as a Christian was just like listen to the Lord, like Him showing me giftedness and discernment from a younger age. And there are two specific stories, and some of them are weird. Or one of them, who cares? It's the Lord moving. I'll just talk about it. The first time, like, I truly felt the Lord say, "Okay, you don't need to do this." I was at football practice, and for those of you who don't know, I'm not good at sports. I played sports because I wanted to, and so I was at football practice, and I was sitting there, and everyone else is playing, and I probably just got off of scout team defense of just getting absolutely destroyed by people bigger than me. And I was like, man, this kind of sucks. And I was like, okay, this is my senior year of high school. And I was like, okay, like, this is fine though. Like, we'll stick it out or whatever. And I really just felt the Lord say, like, you don't need to be here anymore. And I was like, oh crap, okay. And so the next day I quit football, and truly I don't know why. The Lord said I don't need to be here anymore. I was like, okay, fine. So that was the first time, senior year of high school. And then, actually, that was the second time, junior year of high school. A bunch of my friends had joined the National Guard, and they did to pay for school. And I was like, no, it's not for me. I don't ever want to join the military. When I took the ASVAB, which is the military test, entrance test, I was just like, I'm never going to join the military. So I'm just going to do my best. But at the last part of it, I really had to go to the bathroom. And so I just checked a bunch of answers and left. And then and then my friends started joining the National Guard, and like the Lord started working in my heart. And then one day He was like, no, like this is what you need to do. Like, you need to join the National Guard. And I mean, that I can definitely see the impact of. I mean, that's how I ended up being able to pay for school and come to UCO and all kinds of other crazy things. But those were like two probably best things that happened as a young Christian, was just being able to like listen to the Lord in those big moments where He was like, this is what you need to do. And just starting to work on stepping out in obedience in those things. The things that I would avoid is letting the world tell you what you need to do. A lot of the mistakes I made as a young Christian were I was complicit in them, but I knew they were wrong, and I didn't necessarily want to do them, but everyone else was doing it, so why not? And so avoid thinking you need to still act like the world. Just because your friends are doing it and you know it's wrong doesn't mean you have to do it.
That's good. Yeah, I think I would just echo that. Because, and again, it's not like I was off doing, a bunch of crazy things, like having just kind of wild weekends and whatnot. But there are definitely times when, whether it was in a dating relationship or just socially having this pressure of being like, oh, you need to do this thing. And then I look back, it's like, I didn't need to do that. I did it because these other guys were doing it, these friends were doing it, or I felt this pressure that, hey, if we're going to be in a dating relationship, it has to be at this spot. It has to like check off this box, whether that's, kissing or whatever, like it has to check these boxes if you've been in a relationship this long. None of those things were true. I just felt those pressures that's what it had to be. And so those are things I go back on, like, man, like I really wish I would have just like not done any of that, because it had no merit to it. It's not like I'm with that person or, even hanging out with those friends. Like, so it's just like, I should have just kind of maybe ignored what the world was saying. And then the other thing I would say, like, and encourage is take every opportunity that the Lord gives you. And don't try and like reason it out. I look back on my time in college, like the most beneficial things that I was able to be a part of, I mean, it was going on mission trips, going and serving, going and doing. And it was never I was not somebody that hesitated, like, how am I going to pay for that? It'd be like, well, I'll figure out a way. But like, I think the Lord will provide, like, this is going to happen. I'm going to do this. And so if it's a summer project where you can grow in discipleship, okay, like do it, sign up for it. Hey, if it's a 6 to 8 week mission trip overseas in some country you can't really tell people you're going to, like, do it. It's worth it 100%. especially at this young age. Like, you're not going to have these opportunities again, or you don't know if you're going to have these opportunities again. So don't hesitate on taking those chances. Like, the expectation should be doing those things, not, okay, hey, I'll do those things if it fits into my schedule or my routine, but just have that set early on.
Yeah, I would say, again, kind of just like what Kyle said of like, take every opportunity, because that's what, I mean, helped grow my faith a lot. And again, like, I was really young when I came to faith. So like, when the opportunity came for like me to start going to like church camp, and like even like in high school when like I could start going, like there would be like conferences. Like I remember one year, like me and a group went to Passion, like, and just like all these different things. And even like now in college, like mission trips, going to Momentum, going to Collegiate Week, like doing all of the things that are presented to you are not just things that people put together just so you will like have a fun time. Like, they put them together because they deeply believe that, I mean, those times are meant for you to grow in your relationship with the Lord. So take them. And even now, like, especially, and it always cracks me up because sometimes, like, even when it comes around for like Collegiate Week, and I tell students like, oh, we're like going to Falls Creek, and they're like, you guys are doing like church camp? Like, aren't we in college? And I'm like, yes, please come. Like, it's just so, like, it's amazing. And it's, again, it's just those small moments that you have throughout the year of like going on a mission trip for a week, or going to camp for a week, or going to this conference for a weekend or whatever. Like, those small moments build up over time to grow you in your faith. And they, I mean, and I'm not saying like go to those things and those are the only thing that you do to grow your faith, but like they definitely help just in every opportunity. Even like, I even think like my time that I spent overseas is very little, but those, I mean, 10, 15 days like have been some of the most impactful days of my life and still stick with me. And I went overseas as a senior in high school, and like that still has impacted me to like have a heart for the nations. And I mean, that was, again, just 12 days out of the year, but like I had this opportunity and I was like, okay, like I'm just going to go. And I also say that because like in those opportunities, especially just as a new believer, like you never know what the Lord is going to teach you. Going to those things, I mean, you could learn something totally new, and it could change your faith in so many ways. But yeah, so that's what I would say is just like take every opportunity. And then the things that I did wrong was not take the opportunities at times, because I didn't want to go. I remember when I was going to church camp for the first time, and I told my mom I didn't want to go because I didn't want to be away from her overnight. Like, I just remembered that. And I remember, again, my children's pastor coming up to me and asking me like, hey, I'd love to see you come to camp. And I remember talking to my mom. My mom was like, Krista, you'll be fine. And I was like, okay. But that was an opportunity that like I didn't want to take in that moment, but like I did, and it completely changed my life. And like I didn't even know. So, I mean, take opportunities, because a lot of times like you'll regret the ones that you don't take. So
Yeah.
Are you guys laughing at me?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm just thinking about how you didn't come to Canada in 2019. but
Listen!
It's fine.
I don't even.
It's fine. It's okay.
The one
That
time,
was a
see,
long time
but that
ago.
was a thing.
It was a long
I
time
missed
ago.
that one opportunity,
That's right.
and I regret it because now Kyle will not let me forget it.
That was 5 years ago.
Riley was still
You're
in high
right.
school.
Yeah.
I was still in high school.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
It's just funny.
It is funny. Yeah.
You were still in high school?
I was still in high school.
Riley's a baby.
That's so crazy.
I was a junior. I was a junior that year.
Says it's so sad.
I know.
I was a junior that year.
um,
Dark times.
it was dark times. I would say, kind of just to add on to that, to taking every opportunity, take the small ones too, of going to church, of if you're invited to D now, if you're invited just to hang out with like people that are in your youth group or college group, take those opportunities.
I was going to say to hang out with you. Like, as looking at one of us, like, just to hang out with you. If you're invited to hang out with Krista, Tyson, or Kyle, take those opportunities.
Take those opportunities because I've learned that isolation is very dangerous, especially in the first early days of your faith.
Yeah.
Early months, early years. The enemy can tempt you with a lot of doubts in those things. And being with community and like-minded community is something that honestly just was one of the most influential parts of my faith. I found a great group of friends of about 6 people my freshman year of high school, and we all throughout high school were just there to build each other up and to hang out. And I mean, we didn't even talk about like the word all the time. We just were there, and we
Sinners.
I'm just kidding. We hung out, and
Yeah.
we hung out in a manner that was worthy of like just being with Jesus. And that's something that I really want to encourage you guys to do too, is because like I said, that was something that was huge for me. Is I took those small little opportunities that people invited me to, and that turned into into friendships that I still have to this day. Like, these are going to be my best friends for the rest of my life, because we grew up together, and we saw each other's lives grow in Jesus too at the same exact time. So I encourage you guys to find that and to be intentional about finding that.
And I think you bring up a good point, because it's so often like you confess your sins, surrender your life to Christ, you have new life in Christ, and you're on fire, right? You have this zeal, you want to do things for the Lord, you want to grow. And the hard thing is when people that are supposed to be like-minded extinguish that.
Mm.
And so I would encourage you, don't allow people that maybe have, and I'm doing air quotes if you're listening, like have been walking or saved longer, or whatever, like to extinguish and be like, oh hey, you need to calm down a little bit, like you're being a little extra, don't allow them to take that from you, because that's not necessarily like, that's not their call. I mean, your walk is with the Lord, not necessarily, hey, I'm following what they're doing. So don't feel like you have to fit in and do what these other people that are like, oh, well, here are people that have been walking with Jesus longer than I've been alive. Like, I need to do what they're doing. No, if you're convicted to do a specific thing, do it. If you're reading the word, you're eating it up, and you want to talk about it all the time, talk about it. Don't let people like take away your voice about talking about Jesus or sharing the gospel. Usually what I've seen in my experience is people will shut it down because they're convicted that they aren't doing it themselves. And so be intentional, be mindful, but understand, like, keep your eyes fixed on Christ, not on those others around that are saying they're pursuing Christ.
What would you encourage other Christians to do to help, maybe, let's say, younger Christians, just to go along in their faith or to grow in it?
Make disciples. Nailed it. Yes.
Nice. Again.
That was my answer.
No, fret not. I think that if you haven't put it together by now from our initial story, the answer to what should young Christians do and what should older Christians do is kind of the same. Hey, you young Christians, be bold. Walk up to someone and be like, you know what? Can you disciple me? Like, that apparently we've made it very clear that that's something that we were all missing from a young age, and that whenever we got it, it was a huge part in our faith.
Yeah.
And so if you are in college and you just got saved, just walk up to someone that you respect and you feel like the Lord is like, yeah, they're a good Christian. Same gender. I don't think it needs to be said, but we're just gonna say that.
It might need to be said.
Yeah, it might need to be said. And ask them to disciple you.
Yeah.
And for those of you out there who your friend maybe just got saved, if you're up for it, ask them if you can disciple.
Yeah.
And as Kyle said, make disciples. And that'll probably get you started on the right foot.
And even with that, and not just for like younger Christians, but I even just want to make this point. You never outgrow discipleship. So even in the sense of like, if I'm sitting here and I'm an older Christian discipling a younger Christian, like, how can I sit here and tell them, hey, yes, you need to be discipled, but I myself am not in that? Like, what example am I setting? And so that's just also very important just in the growth of your faith as you are, discipling new Christians. And then another thing that I see as a trend a lot, and Riley kind of talked about it just in the sense of new believers just being isolated. I meet a lot of students that I feel like their stories, they came to know Christ as like a junior or senior in high school, or even like a freshman in college, and they are the only Christian in their family. And that makes it extremely difficult for them to hold Christian community like in like a high standard in the sense of pursuing that. So if you are an older believer and you see someone that is a new believer, just invite them into your community. Even if they're already being discipled by someone, like whatever it is, just invite them into your community to BCM. Obviously invite them to church, invite them to be a part of a local body of believers. And that is very, very important, because sometimes they don't have that encouragement from people who are close to them, and that can be hard.
Yeah, that's good. Good work, guys.
It's good stuff. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for sharing and everything. I think we all have stories that are unique and personal relationships with Jesus that are encouraging, and hopefully encouraging to you guys that are listening. So if you are listening, or you know somebody who has just became a Christian, I pray that and I hope that you guys are there for them. And if you are somebody who just became a Christian, I hope this really helped you. We talked about how just to find community, how to even just grow your faith, and look for somebody to disciple you. That was kind of our main point there. Is like, look for somebody to disciple you. And if you don't have anybody to disciple you, just ask one of us. We'll be more than happy to do that, or help you find somebody. Yeah. So if you want that in your life, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask anybody, or like that, especially at the BCM. We are big on that, and we really want to make that known, that if you want to be discipled, we are here. We're with you and for you, right? Yeah. That's our slogan, and that's what we want to do. So thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Be sure to tune in next week, where we'll be having another awesome discussion. And if you want more information or want to ask us a question, make sure to follow us on Instagram at UCO BCM.